Let your eyes rest and allow this soft tale to unfold. Far to the east, just beyond the hush of the desert's edge, the sky is turning the color of warm milk and faded peach. The stars are fading one by one, blinking out gently like tiny lamps being turned down for sleep. In Thebes, the great and ancient city nestled along the Nile's slow and curving path, a new day has begun, but it has not rushed in. It has crept softly, quietly, as if not to disturb the dreams of those still wrapped in linen sleep. The first sound to rise is not a call or a clatter, but a whisper, the faint whispering rustle of tall papyrus reeds along the riverbank, swaying in the dawn breeze. Somewhere nearby a pot is being gently lifted from a fire and a lid placed quietly onto another. A single pigeon coos once, then falls silent again. In a small house made of mud brick, washed pale with river clay and warmed by the sun's memory from the day before, a man shifts beneath a woven blanket. His name is Dudu. He is not a king, not a warrior, but he holds something just as sacred. He is a scribe, one of those chosen not for sword or crown, but for the steady movement of his hand and the quiet, clear rhythm of his mind. Dudu breathes in slowly, the soft scent of dried reeds and cool stone lingering in the room. His home is simple. A reed mat beneath him, a low table with folded linen, 2 small baskets, one with inkstones, the other with cut reeds for pens. His father's scroll, long wrapped in cloth, rests in the corner beside a tiny statue of Thoth, the ibis-headed god of writing. He swings his feet to the ground. The floor is cool. He stands, stretches, and walks to a stone basin beside the doorway. Lifting a clay jar, he pours clear water into the bowl. It splashes gently, just enough to wake the fingers, not to startle the stillness. With both hands he washes, slowly, not just to clean, but as a kind of quiet beginning. The day deserves a peaceful welcome. He pats his hands dry on a folded cloth and steps outside. The light is richer now, golden and slow, like honey sliding down the edge of a cup. The sun is still low, its warmth not yet strong, but the air hums with quiet life. A few neighbors move about in silence. A woman sweeps her threshold with gentle swishes. A boy walks by balancing a basket of bread on his head. No one speaks loudly. It is not yet time for voices. Dudu bends to tie his sandals, their straps smooth and familiar. He picks up a satchel containing his tools, his pens, ink cakes, and fresh scraps of papyrus. He checks them quietly, not out of hurry, but out of care. The work of writing cannot be rushed. The gods, he believes, do not speak through haste. With a final glance at the altar inside, he bows his head to Thoth and begins his walk toward the temple.
The school was not a place of noise. It was tucked inside the temple's shadow, where smooth stone met papyrus mats, and low chants echoed gently from the sanctuary halls. There, in a shaded colonnade cooled by pools of water, young apprentices like Dudu sat cross-legged, with slates of wood upon their knees. A stern but soft-spoken master, robes rustling like dry leaves, taught them the sacred order of signs. Not all could keep still. Some squirmed or whispered. But Dudu? He listened as if the words themselves were birds in his hand. First, the simplest signs. The loaf. The seated man. The water ripple. Then phrases. Then verses from old songs, soft and slow and ancient as the stone underfoot. He would dip his reed brush into thick black ink, and trace, with infinite care, the breath of gods across smooth papyrus. The reed brush. It was nothing more than a cut stalk, softened with water and patience. But in the hands of a scribe, it became a bridge between worlds. Each day, Dudu learned its rhythm, the pressure, the curve, the lift at the end of a glyph. There was no hurry. A scribe does not race the wind. Instead, he breathes with the ink, pauses between words, lets the meaning sink like pollen into the page. He would prepare his ink, black from soot and resin, red from ochre ground with water, mixed slowly in shallow shells. He worked in silence, except for the distant calls of ibis birds, and the soft, barely there scrape, of papyrus against stone desk. Each scroll was a life. And every letter, a sacred breath.
The sun rises slowly in ancient Egypt, not in a rush, but as though it, too, is awakening from a dream. In the quiet scribe's quarter of the temple complex, life begins not with noise, but with hush. Dudu folds his linen robe over one shoulder, slips on sandals with frayed laces, and steps into the cool air of the courtyard. The ground is still cool beneath his feet, and the scent of yesterday's ink clings faintly to his fingers. Others stir softly, a potter adjusting his kiln, a temple boy fetching water in a goatskin bag, a sleepy priest murmuring a morning hymn under his breath. Dedu walks past them all, toward the scriptorium. Today, he will copy from a royal archive, an old prayer, repeated for centuries, spoken in the deepest halls of Karnak. A prayer meant not to stir the heavens, but to steady the soul. Just a narrow room with 3 windows, open to the Nile breeze, with shelves of scrolls and inkstones, lining the walls like sleeping bees in honeycomb. Dedu has a place by the window, where the light is gentlest in the early day. He unwraps the scroll he's to copy, a hymn of offering from the reign of Amenhotep, written in neat black strokes, with golden margins faded by time. He speaks the words aloud softly, not for anyone to hear, just to feel them in his mouth. In the presence of Ra, the heart is light. And with steady hand, he begins to copy. Each curve of the brush feels like the movement of river reeds in wind. There's no thought of speed, only flow. He writes for hours, pausing only when the sun is too high, and the papyrus grows warm beneath his palm.
Each scroll has its own feel. Some are old and flake softly at the edges. Some are smooth, freshly pressed from marsh reeds, with a faint smell of river mud and sun. The ink, too, changes with the season, thicker in winter, thinner in the dry months. Red ink is used for sacred names, black for the body of the text. Scribes never mix them. It would be like confusing the sun with the moon. The scroll Dedu is working on is meant for burial, to rest beside the body of a noblewoman who lived 75 summers. Her name, Sekhemti, is written in careful red glyphs, followed by prayers for a peaceful journey to the field of reeds. As Dedu writes, he imagines her spirit floating beside him, watching, approving, smiling. He never met her, but her story now flows through his hands. When the sun reaches its peak, no one writes. The ink dries too fast, the stone walls grow warm, and even the ibis find shade beneath fig trees. Dedu steps out of the scriptorium and walks toward the marshes beyond the temple wall, where reeds grow tall and dragonflies hum like distant flutes. He carries a basket of bread and figs, a small clay jug of beer, and a handful of lotus petals to cool his palms. He sits in the shadow of a bent sycamore, watching the Nile move like a great blue ribbon, stretching all the way to the southern lands. There is no rush to return. He eats slowly. He breathes deeply. Even in rest, a scribe is learning. He watches the curve of the ibis neck, the dance of shadows on the river, and stores them away for later, for writing. After the midday rest, Dedu walks the long corridor beside the temple garden, his feet silent on the stone path, polished smooth by centuries of sandals. He carries a scroll, just completed, tucked carefully into a woven reed case. He is headed to the House of Records, a cool, dim archive deep within the temple grounds, where knowledge lives in quiet stillness. Inside, the air is dry and smells faintly of old ink and cedar oil. Shelves carved into stone hold hundreds of scrolls, each one tied with colored ribbon, some so old the glyphs have softened like breath on glass. He greets the archive keeper, an elderly woman named Huyat, who wears linen robes the color of sand. Together, they place the scroll into its resting space, between a treaty with Nubia and a prayer to Osiris. Dedu always lingers here. It is not just a library. It is a temple made of words. Not far from the House of Records, beneath a row of painted columns, the priests gather to review temple inventories. Dedu is invited to assist, not to speak, but to record. It is a privilege, for not all scribes work beside the priests. He listens as they discuss grain stores, linen offerings, and the schedules of festivals to come. His reed brush moves steadily, capturing their words with practiced grace. 3 baskets of barley for the feast of Suthis, 2 bolts of white linen for the image of Amun. No one rushes. Everything is deliberate. The priests speak like the wind, not loud, but certain. Dedu feels honored, yet calm. He is not writing for himself. He is writing for the gods. As afternoon gives way to evening, Dedu is given a rare task, to help copy the Scroll of the Sky, a hymn to Nut, goddess of the stars. It is long and intricate, filled with glyphs shaped like stars, serpents, and suns. He and another scribe, a quiet girl named Eri, sit beside a basin of polished copper that reflects the sky above. Together, they copy the sacred symbols as soft light from the west bathes their hands. The papyrus smells of honey and reed. The ink flows like night into form. Above them, the first stars begin to emerge, and below, they write their echoes. Dedu doesn't speak. He lets the stars write through him as darkness deepens, the temple shifts. The daytime bustle fades, and a hush falls over the sacred stones. Torches flicker gently in copper bowls. Shadows dance on pillars carved with falcons and lotus. Dedu walks alone now, past statues of Sekhmet and Thoth, his scrolls tied and tucked under one arm. He passes a still pool where lotus flowers float, closed tight for the night. It's here the priests offer evening chants, soft invocations meant not to wake the gods, but to keep them gently watching. Dedu listens. He is a listener by nature. And tonight, as always, he feels the deep comfort of his smallness within the vast stillness of the temple. That night, Dedu sleeps beneath a reed roof. The stars above are clear, and the air is cool and dry. He dreams of Thoth, not as a stern ibis-headed judge, but as a quiet figure, writing by moonlight. In the dream, they sit together beside a river that flows backward, writing the names of forgotten stars onto strips of sky. Each stroke, Thoth whispers, is a bridge between silence and meaning. Dedu wakes slowly, peaceful, his fingers still curved as if holding a brush. The sky is pale now. Dawn is near. But he is not tired. He feels full. As the eastern horizon brightens, Dedu rises. He rolls up his last scroll of the week, a letter for a merchant, blessed by priests and sealed with wax. It will travel south with a caravan, past fields of wheat, past sacred crocodiles, perhaps even to Nubia. He sets it beside the temple gate, where the courier will find it. And then, he returns to the same fig tree by the marsh, where dragonflies now stretch sleepy wings. He has no ink on his hands today, only the peace of a job well done. And as the sky turns soft gold, he watches the ibis rise into the sky, slow, graceful, like lines of script drifting up into heaven. And now, dear listener, you've walked the slow path of a scribe. You've dipped your brush into sacred ink, watched shadows fall on temple stone, listened to hymns drift through lotus-scented air. You've followed quiet footsteps through columns and corridors, and found, at last, a stillness that's as old as the stars. So let yourself rest now. No need to copy any scrolls tonight. The ink is dry. The world is soft. And your story continues, gently, in dreams. Sleep well. And may your thoughts float, like papyrus on the Nile. Good night. There are days when even a scribe puts down his brush. Today, Dedu is not writing. He is listening. In the inner garden of the House of Life, elders gather beneath palm trees to share tales of Pharaohs past. Some stories are barely more than whispers: how the stars flickered the night Hatshepsut was crowned, how scribes once wrote entire poems with only the image of the sun and the lotus. Dedu sits cross-legged in the grass, his hands resting lightly in his lap, not as a student, but as a vessel for memory. He lets the words float around him, like incense in the warm air. And he smiles. For even without ink, he is still writing. Inside, not all of a scribe's work happens behind temple walls. Some days, Dedu walks to the edge of the village, where the fields ripple with gold, and farmers harvest wheat with curved knives, under the careful gaze of Ra. He's there to count and record. No scrolls today. Just a simple wooden tally board, and a reed stylus blackened with soot. The farmers greet him with dusty hands, and quiet respect. He watches, then gently marks rows and bundles, tallying each sheaf with care. He listens to their talk, of weather, of children, of gods they pray to in quiet moments. And when the counting is done, they share figs and a sip of beer under a shade cloth, laughing softly, as the river wind moves through the stalks. Back within temple grounds, there lies a hidden vault, a place not all scribes ever see. Dedu enters it quietly, led by a high scribe named Menwa. The stairs descend into cool, carved stone, and the air smells of ink, beeswax, and myrrh. Here are the kingdom's oldest scrolls, wrapped in leather, stored in clay jars, or resting in cedar boxes inscribed with prayers. Dedu does not speak. He only watches as Menwa unwraps a scroll written 6 dynasties ago. Its symbols are small, precise, painted with pigments that shimmer like pearl. They are copying it today, not to replace it, but to remember it, should time ever forget. Dedu holds his breath. History feels heavy here, and yet, somehow, feather light. Today, a scribe's hand touches history. A royal messenger has arrived, carrying a decree from the pharaoh himself, an order for new canal works in the south. It must be copied, word for word, flawlessly. Dedu joins 3 others in the scriptorium, their brushes dipped, their breath steady. Each symbol is sacred now. Each brush stroke, not just art, but law. He copies the lines in black ink, carefully adding red for the names of gods and kings. They will make 3 copies, one for the archives, one for the canal overseers, and one for the pharaoh's own vault. The room is silent, except for the soft music of brushes moving across papyrus. The sun has long since set, but the work is not yet finished. Dedu sits alone in a small alcove, a clay oil lamp casting a steady circle of amber light. The rest of the temple is sleeping, but he finds peace in this moment, in the stillness, the silence, the soft flicker of flame beside his scroll. He is not writing now. He is reviewing. His fingers trace each glyph slowly, testing for balance and shape, making gentle corrections with a damp reed. Outside, the wind moves through the palm trees. Inside, there is only warmth, quiet breath, and a whisper of ink drying. This is the scribe's sacred hour. When even words fall asleep, he steps out at last. The temple courtyard is wrapped in silence, bathed in starlight. Torches are dimmed, and statues stand still in slumber. Dedu walks barefoot across the cool stone, his scroll complete, his mind empty of thought. He looks up, and sees Orion, the same constellation that guided the builders of the pyramids, the same stars the first scribes wrote of when papyrus was still new. He smiles. He is only one among many, a single scribe, on a single night. But his ink will last. It will dry into memory. And maybe, one day, someone will read his scrolls, and wonder who wrote them. And so we return, to where we began. A scribe's bed beneath a woven roof. Scrolls tucked away. Brushes rinsed. Hands washed of ink. Dedu lays his head upon a linen pillow, eyes heavy with the hush of the day. He does not dream of kings or wars. He dreams of glyphs. Of birds and baskets. Of sun disks and river waves. Symbols floating gently, in a place where words become stars. And so too may you sleep now, with soft thoughts, a quiet mind, and a calm heart. Sleep, dear one. The story has been written. It is the time of the flood, when the river kisses the banks, and the fields are reborn beneath shimmering waters. During this quiet season, scribes often take on special tasks. Dedu has one today. He is writing a scroll for a child, not a legal decree, not a temple record, but a gift. A small scroll, painted with gentle glyphs of animals and stars, crafted for the daughter of the high priest. She is learning to read, and this scroll will be her first. He chooses soft colors, ochre for the sun, lapis for the beetle, and gentle red for the rising lotus. Each symbol is a song of wonder. It will be rolled in linen, and tied with a reed ribbon. And when she opens it, the scroll will smile. Because words, when written with care, can carry love. On a still afternoon, Dedu sits beneath the shade of an olive tree, scroll in lap, eyes closed. He is not asleep. He is remembering. A boy once knelt in the dust of a courtyard, shivering with nerves, watching an elder dip a brush in ink. He remembers the first glyph he ever learned, the sun. A simple circle. Yet it burned into his heart, with all the warmth of the real sun above. He remembers his teacher's voice, firm, slow, kind. Do not write quickly. Let the breath of the word shape your hand. And that first time, when the ink dried, and his own hand had created meaning. He smiles softly now. Not all memories fade. Some stay. Like ink pressed deep into papyrus, impossible to erase. Even scribes have holidays. Tonight is the festival of Seshat, goddess of writing, keeper of wisdom. Lamps are lit along the temple walkways, their reflections dancing in polished pools. Priests hum low chants. Children carry palm reeds adorned with beads. Dedu joins the crowd, but remains quiet, watching as other scribes lay offerings, inkpots, brushes, scraps of script, at Seshat's shrine. He places a tiny scroll, just one line, The word endures longer than stone. And then he steps back, as music rises in the dusk. People laugh, priests pray, flames flicker. The air smells of cinnamon and olive oil. And the stars above, they blink, as if reading along. One evening, a boy comes to Dudu, carrying a broken reed pen. He says nothing, but his eyes are wide with quiet hope. Dudu takes the pen, examines it, and hands the boy a new one. But more than that, he teaches him how to cut a reed, how to hold the blade gently, how to dip the tip just enough into ink. They sit beside the river, in warm silence, as the boy copies a single glyph, again and again. Later, the child falls asleep, on a folded cloth, ink on his fingertips. Dudu watches him. He knows. This is how scribes are born. Not in classrooms, but in still moments, by the side of someone who remembers. There comes a scroll, long and winding, its contents nearly complete. One more line remains. Dudu dips his brush one last time, the ink deep as night. He breathes in slowly, and lets the words emerge, with calm precision. Not rushed. Not hesitant. The scroll ends with a blessing, for peace, for memory, for those who will read long after he is gone. He lets the ink dry. Then he places the scroll among others, not at the top, not hidden below, just in its place. Like a note in a great song. He rises. The work is finished. But the story continues. Now, let your own eyes grow heavy. You have walked beside the scribe, stepped through temple halls, watched ink flow like the river, heard stories whispered in shadows. And now, there is nothing more to do. Let the scrolls rest. Let the sand settle. Let the words drift into dreams. A soft breeze moves through palm leaves. A reed curtain sways. A night bird sings only once, and then is still. Sleep now, like the scribes of old. You, too, are part of the story. Good night, and may your dreams be written in light.